This session is Future Defence Investment. Where will the money be spent and what technologies are the future? Moderated by Danny Seabright, President of the US-UAE Business Council.
Thank you so much, and we're so honored again to participate in the Global Aerospace Summit in Abu Dhabi, understanding that this is a virtual session and wishing that we could all be there in person, of course. Welcome to today's webinar on future defense investment, during which we will examine two fundamentally important questions. Where will the money be spent, and what technologies are the future? Over the next 40 minutes, we will look at these questions through a variety of lenses, including ongoing efforts by the Gulf states to develop their indigenous defense industries, and this is a very, very important point. The war in Yemen and new types of threats posed by Iran, the recent signing of the historic Abraham Accords between the UAE, Israel, and Bahrain, and including the US, of course, and the global COVID-19 pandemic and the impact also of low oil prices. Heightened competition in the space and cyber domains will also figure into the discussion. In today's webinar, I'm honored to be joined by four leading figures in the defense industry who wrestle with these questions every day. Engineer Walid Abu-Khalid, who's the Chief Executive Officer at Saudi Arabian Military Industries, or SAMI. Alan Davis, the Chief Executive at Raytheon Emirates. Ivor Ichikovitz, Group Executive Chairman at Paramount Group. And John Gruen, Partner at Gotham's. Without further ado, I will introduce each panelist for very brief opening remarks, and then I will moderate a question and answer session with our distinguished speakers. So with that, I'd like to begin by introducing our first speaker, Engineer Walid Abu-Khalid, who is the Chief Executive Officer at SAMI. As CEO, he is in charge of managing SAMI's operational, business, and achieving its strategic objectives. Prior to joining SAMI, he was the CEO of Northrop Grumman Middle East, Deputy Minister for Industrial Affairs at the Saudi Ministry of Commerce and Industry, and the CEO of GE in Saudi Arabia and Bahrain. Walid brings incredible experience to the table, and Walid, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Danny. Thank you so much, Danny. I really appreciate the opportunity to be part of this esteemed panel. I think we all see huge transformations taking place in the whole Middle East region, but particularly in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. And when I talk about transformation, of course, it's going at all fronts, but I would like to focus on the defense industry, specifically on, as you quite rightly stated, having indigenous capability in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. We all know that the defense budget in the Kingdom of Saudi is one of the largest in the world. It's probably #1 in the world when it comes to importing defense equipment. So it's just a no-brainer that a clear focus now in the kingdom is to do things locally, to support the acquisition, after sales support all locally within, and to be part of any new acquisition programs. That said, the old good days where an OEM will come, sell a product, deliver it to time, to cost, is all gone. That will not happen again. The new way of doing business in the kingdom now is, if you want to sell your platform or if you want to sell your system or product, there have to be clear localization, and you will be measured on it, and it will be done in partnership with local companies. So I think that's tremendous change in the defense industry to building indigenous capabilities, and I have no doubt we'll be discussing more today.
Walid, thank you very much, and very, very important points about indigenous development. I'd like to turn now, if I might, to Alan Davis. Alan's a close friend and colleague, Chief Executive of Raytheon Emirates, based in Raytheon Technologies, based in Abu Dhabi. It's a landed company in the UAE, which is one of the first significant US landed companies in the United Arab Emirates. Alan has 30+ years of industry experience with over 25 in program management. He brings a wealth of knowledge to today's topic, and I'm so pleased to not just have him on this panel, but to work so closely with him as a valued member of the Business Council. Alan, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Danny. I appreciate it. And it's certainly an opportunity and a pleasure to be here with yourself and the distinguished other panelists. You started off the opening remarks with unprecedented times, and that's probably an understatement. When you look at things that are happening here in the region, and certainly the Abraham Accord completely changes the geopolitical landscape for the Middle East. And I read an article the other day, and it talked about it's the same significance as the Berlin Wall coming down. And it is going to be an amazing, exciting time for all of us here. The opportunities that opens up for all of us in multiple sectors and multiple industries and economies is going to be eye-watering as this progresses over the next several years. And so we are excited about that. We know here in the UAE that there are unique demands, unique requirements, certainly threats. And we believe that as a landed company here in the UAE and working closely with the State Department and all of the partners here, that we're positioned very well to continue to provide the best systems and solutions for the UAE and for stability in the Middle East. But more importantly, to leave a legacy here and do what has been a foundational goal here for the UAE, which is to develop talent, Emirati talents, develop an industrial base, and to transfer technologies to give them that indigenous capability so they can sustain those types of systems on their own. So it's a pleasure to be here, and I'm looking forward to today's conversation.
Alan, thank you so much. Really appreciate you being here with us today. Next, I would like to introduce Ivor Ichikowicz, who's the Group Executive Chairman of Paramount Group. I think Ivor and I first met sitting next to each other at an IDEX number of IDEXs ago by mutual friend Clifford Dool. Paramount Group is Africa's largest privately held defense and aerospace company and very active in the UAE space and the Gulf space, deep ties in the broader Gulf. It's my pleasure to have Ivor also as a great friend on today's panel. Ivor, the floor is yours.
Danny, thank you. Thank you very much. And it's a great honor to be on this panel with such an esteemed grouping. I'm very sad that we're not all together in Abu Dhabi for the Global Aerospace Summit. And I really hope that this virtual experience works well for everybody. But I'm really looking forward to physically being back at the Aerospace Summit, which was always a highlight of the year for me, because it's an opportunity to put in context what is really going on in the world. And we've spoken about unprecedented times. I think it's a bit of a cliche, but the truth is, I don't think the world is ever going to be the same, and our industry is not going to be the same. Paramount's experience over many years is in working in the developing world, in difficult markets, in adjusting to change very, very rapidly. And I'm energized and I'm excited about these unprecedented times, because it's going to make the world think differently about the aerospace industry. It's going to make us all think differently about our businesses. And more importantly, it's going to make us all have to plug in very seriously to what our customers and our partners want to it for their economies. And Paramount has always been about partnership. We've always been about collaboration. We've always been about creating industrial capability in our partner countries. And I see around me massive opportunity to expand that and to enhance that and to do energetic and exciting and invigorating different things. And I very much look forward to this discussion, because I think it will lead us in some of those directions.
Thank you, Ivor. And as the saying goes, those that embrace change are the ones that can be successful, because change is a constant in life, and we are experiencing a significant amount of change at this time. With that, if I could please turn to John Gruen, partner at Gotham's. At Gotham's, John leverages more than 20 successful years in the defense and aerospace industry to provide innovative solutions for startups to support the largest corporations in the world in furthering their business and their growth. John manages an accelerator program at Hub 71 in Abu Dhabi, sponsored by Mubadala, of course, for startups that leverage the UAE's aerospace and defense ecosystem to get to scale quickly. Previously, John was a corporate business development and strategy lead at Lockheed Martin. John, the floor is yours for your opening comments.
Thank you very much, Danny. Great to be here today and with all these esteemed panelists. Again, wish I was in Abu Dhabi or as well, but for now, we'll take this virtual platform and make it the best we can. I just amplifying the comments that were made earlier about opportunity and change. I'm extremely fortunate to be at this time and place, to be working in a startup world with young, hungry talent from around the world that sees massive opportunity in the MENA region. And in particularly, we bring in companies to base them out of Abu Dhabi and get them established and engaged with all the different partners that are part of this aerospace and defense ecosystem, from the large primes to the government agencies, all of which are looking to see, and engage this young talent and this young technologies that are emerging either out of the commercial world or out of some of the advanced labs around the world. And so for us, it is just an opportunity that's ripe, and we're dealing with all of these partners daily and seeing how we can help establish these local ecosystems and bring this technology and bring the talent that's in the region and marry the two and allow these companies to flourish and globally. We're not bringing in companies to just be local, have local sales. They're looking to establish operations that are going to be global players in this market. And so for us, it's extremely exciting just daily with all the different partners in the region. And we see, and just understanding what opportunities are coming. It is truly a pivotal moment in time. And we're very excited to be, again, on the forefront of the innovation ecosystem.
John, thanks so much. And with that, let's just jump right in. Previously, and in other efforts to indigenize, create indigenous production, if you will, in the Gulf region, we have had the issue of scale, and that's something that will continue to challenge our efforts, everyone's efforts there. But we've seen an acceleration in the region to localize defense spending and to build up that indigenous defense industrial ecosystem. And John, I'd like to ask you, where's the UAE and some of the regional governments, where are they currently investing? In what specific verticals of aerospace and defense or sub-verticals of aerospace and defense, where are they investing to develop their local defense industries? And I'd like the other panelists to chime in as well on this question with appropriate interventions. Go ahead, John.
Great. So from my point of view, working again with early stage startups that are bringing typically dual use commercial technologies in or potentially revolutionary technologies out of labs, we really look to position them in the functional verticals under maybe a large system. So if you take a large aircraft or a large weapon system, those are generally produced by the large primes. It takes massive infrastructure and capital resources. But when you start to bring that into a new region or a new country, there are immense opportunities in everything from supply chain to training to working on the applications that have to be made to take that platform and make it successful in the region. So obviously things like artificial intelligence, machine learning, those are wildly desired and needed when you start bringing in and importing new technologies into, and large platforms again, into a country. We see a lot of growth in that opportunity, a lot of motivation because of the ability to train engineers in the region and have them establish those kind of companies. Again, blockchain for supply chain, that's a huge desire. Having trust in the supply chain is massively important. Virtual and augmented reality for training, that's a very big desire. And then communications, so wireless communications, the cyber and the encryption that goes, because everyone, obviously, every country and defense organization wants to have their own version of that that's secure to them. So a lot of those areas we see a constant demand for new capabilities.
So thank you. We obviously have a good example of the MRO aspect of that with AMROC over the last 10 years. And that's very, very important to point out for sure. But Waleed, from a Saudi, can you say a few words from a Saudi perspective? What are your priorities? What are the Saudis' priorities right now for indigenous production design and that sort of thing?
No, thank you. I believe what John said, really, I'll be surprised if it doesn't apply to key areas that governments are focusing on. Sorry, I think can you hear me? Sorry, because it says I'm muted, so it's okay. Sorry, let me repeat that. So I believe, Danny, what John mentioned about the key verticals will apply to the kingdom as well. Those are the trends. This is where things are heading. And I believe, they say work smarter, not harder. I put the harder piece as the traditional warfare when you have tankers, land vehicles, some air power. I think the smarter piece is everything John talked about: artificial intelligence, machine learning, cybersecurity, electronic warfare. I believe the trend is going on the latter one, which is mainly electronic warfare. To win future wars, you have to be on the edge, you have to be advanced when it comes to electronic warfare. And that's where the focus is. That said, I think you cannot ignore the traditional way on defense, the key defense platform, the key defense acquisition. We at SAMI, as the national defense champion of the kingdom, we're looking at all fronts, of course. We have various divisions to cater for those requirements. Air, sea, defense electronics is big divisions where we believe this is where the future is. And however, we cannot ignore the MRO. You quite rightly mentioned MRO. MRO is seen by many as the basics, but from business perspective, it's the future. There's so much requirements on MRO, and I think if you think about it, you can use all the new technologies to support your MRO requirements. So we're doing both. We're looking at the traditional and we're looking at the advanced trends in defense.
Thank you so much. Ivor and Alan, from your perspectives as representing foreign companies partnering in the UAE and in the region today, I mean, you've adopted different strategies and different objectives. I mean, obviously, Raytheon's strategy of creating 100% owned landed company in the UAE is a very important and step forward in the ecosystem there. But Ivor, why don't you go first and talk about it from your perspective as a foreign company? How do you partner? And then maybe Alan, you could say a few words from Raytheon's perspective as well, please.
Many years ago, Paramount developed the concept of portable production. We realized that in order, as a then small privately owned company, we realized that the only way that we were going to grow materially into a global business was through partnerships, and specifically partnerships with governments. We have a huge body of intellectual property. We have a very big investment in developed technologies which are battlefield proven. And we identified that there were going to be major governments like the Saudi Arabias of this world who had non-negotiable domestic production. And we've always agreed with that. We believe that defense industrial capability needs to live where the market is. And Paramount developed a portable production methodology, which we implemented and have done successfully for many, many years. When the Middle East woke up to the reality that their defense spending had to be done domestically, this was a hallelujah moment for us because, in the past, huge budgets in the Middle East, very little regard for domestic technology development, very little regard for employing domestically and creating capacity. And when this changed, it started talking to the Paramount narrative. So we're very excited about this. We have made it very clear to all of our partners in the Middle East and to many partners elsewhere in the world that we're open for business, and we're open for business by way of partnerships, by way of licensing agreements, by way of joint ventures, with the objective to bring proven battlefield technologies into a domestic production environment where we can then back in through life support. Because at the end of the day, all of these sophisticated systems are only of any value if they work. And they can only work if there is domestic ownership that is taken of the technology behind them, that the MRO is in place, that through life support is in place, that midlife upgrades are in place, and that way the systems become sustainable for many years. I want to close these remarks by saying that because we've always worked in countries with limited budgets, we produce technology that has a 25-year life cycle. Now, in order to be able to supply technology that's got a life of 25 years, you have to have cost-effective maintenance and cost-effective support in country. And in order to do that, you have to train people. You have to make sure that the in-country capability exists. And
Ivor, you locked up on us, so I think I'm going to move. Okay, I'm going to move to Alan. And Alan, maybe you can fold into your comments too a little bit about the importance of interoperability with U.S. forces as well, and how that works with companies who have the mission from coming abroad to help the UAE and other countries in their indigenous capability, but also to make sure that they are interoperable with U.S. forces in the region.
Yeah. So great point, Danny. So as you well know, the U.S. and the UAE are very close allies. And certainly we, Raytheon, as well as many of the other defense contractors, have enjoyed a legacy of sustained relationships here in the UAE, and are clearly partners in supporting them in providing regional security stability and helping provide systems that sustain their sovereignty. And so the relationship really begins at what I will call a military operations, sustainability, interoperability. You know, many of the, what I would say, regional conflicts that we've seen over the last 20 years have been coordinated and collaborated through allied forces, if you will. And the ability to be able to support, sustain, and work in those environments is paramount. And as we move forward now into, you know, the next generation of systems and solutions, one of the things that we're doing here in the UAE is to be able to get them to get to a position where they can be less dependent on other systems and solutions coming into them, and more about developing the capability here indigenously. Their economy is maturing. They have an incredible talent pool that we've helped with through internship programs, through SEEDS program with Tawazun, through a lot of the other, you know, panelist companies here and other defense contractors. And so locally here now, it's about providing systems and solutions and helping them have that sovereignty, but more importantly, developing it here and helping with their local industries to provide that capability so they can be less dependent on sources outside the UAE. That's a long-term play. That is fine for us. We've been here for 30 plus years, and you know, we want to leave that legacy. You know, when we had a conversation with His Highness 3 months ago, I remember him telling the story. There's 10 million people in the UAE. There's only 1 million Emiratis. 9 million people are coming from someplace else. And there's a responsibility to be able to protect and safeguard them so they can continue to support the economy here and people feel safe and secure. And that's an obligation that we all take on, along with the obligation and commitment to help them develop that capability here.
Thank you, Alan. Very, very important points for sure. I'd like to turn to Waleed again, if I could. Waleed, you have an interesting perspective because you've sat in both places. You've sat as the CEO of Northrop Grumman, a foreign or a U.S. company operating in the region, and now you're sitting in SAMI, 100% Saudi company, and leading a regional and leading this new development capability that's transpiring in the kingdom. Can you shed some light on the uniqueness of SAMI as a national champion for the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and its strategic business divisions that play a pivotal role in increasing domestic defense capabilities?
Thank you, Danny, for that question. And you're right. There are two different perspectives. Representing an international defense company in the past, the strategy has been put in the U.S. how the business growth in the kingdom and in the Middle East region. And I was there really in tailoring the strategy to ensure it's successful and making recommendation to ensure growth. And that worked well. I've got the best really practices, best international practices when it comes to business integrity, compliance, export controls, and so on. And now I'm trying to apply everything I've learned working for a multinational defense company to a local company in the kingdom. Now, SAMI, I just need to remind people, I mean, it's officially, it was announced in 2017, middle of 2017. The first CEO was appointed in January 2018. So if you look at it from the outside, it's really a startup company. It's a new company. That said, it has so much focus from the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia to ensure its success. Our owner is the Public Investment Fund. So officially we're owned by the Saudi government, by the Public Investment Fund. And I'm here to ensure SAMI is in par with really truly multinational defense companies when it comes to processes, procedures, policies, and standards and the way we're going to operate. We've done a great job in setting the foundations. Now SAMI reached a point where it's going to start to win and execute key programs. And as I said before, because of the market value in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and in the Gulf, that's going to be our focus initially. In the future, absolutely, we're going to look at how can we go international. My mandate is by 2030, SAMI will be one of the largest defense company in the world, and the target is to be one of the top 25 companies in the world. Before I joined SAMI, I thought this is extremely ambitious program and there's no way it's going to be achieved. After joining SAMI and now leading it really, and looking how we're treated by our customers, by the key stakeholders, I have no doubt in my mind that SAMI will be in the top 25 companies in the world by 2030, if not the top 20. The changes that are taking place in the kingdoms will force SAMI to be that leading company in the world. The transformation, the new policies and regulation by GAMI, which is the General Authority for Military Industries, the support we're getting from our key customers, whether it's Ministry of Defense or Ministry of National Guard, Ministry of Interior, or Presidency of State Security is unbelievable. I think the ecosystem is started to work extremely well. SAMI will be an international company soon, but I think our goal is by 2030.
Well, as we say, Mabruk, those are incredibly ambitious goals. And if, from my experience working in the region, I have no doubt that you're going to achieve them. So best of luck on that for sure.
But one point really to add, Danny, is we're not going to achieve them alone. We are achieving them with our key strategic partners, our really close partners, whether they are US defense companies, European defense companies, South African defense company, and you name it. We're going to grow together. We're going to learn from them the best way of doing business. We will implement it here. We will get the know-how, and we will grow together. That's our mandate.
Thank you. We're going to discuss the threats and the evolving threats in the region here towards the end of the webinar, but I want to stay on this theme of the way the indigenous companies are evolving, the way budgets are changing. We know we're in an environment where, while the threat continues to grow, the pressure on the budget remains is also growing, and to do more at home. From the original equipment manufacturers to all the companies who service the equipment, this pressure is just going to continue to contain costs. Ivor, what are the key factors to supporting cost-effective and tailored sustainment solutions for defense platforms? And then how can companies capitalize on increasing interest for what is termed lowest cost, technically acceptable solutions? Or, as we say in the US also, COTS, commercially available off-the-shelf solutions.
Again, I think the world is not going to be the same into the future as it was in the past. I think that governments, even wealthy governments, want equipment on an availability basis. You know, for many years, we've been supplying governments with capability, not necessarily equipment. Power by the hour solutions, contractor managed maintenance, and government for availability. And interestingly enough, there's been little uptake of that in the established first world defense industrial environment. We're seeing a change to that. And I think that there's going to be a bigger requirement in places like the Middle East, where it's not just about budget, it's about efficiency. Militaries need to be spending their effort on fighting wars and protecting territory, not on fixing vehicles, not on maintaining aircraft, not on upgrading systems. And I think that the whole idea of cost effectiveness is not just about how you buy equipment cost effectively or how you produce it cost effectively, but how you maintain it, how you service it, and how you operate it cost effectively. And that, I think, is going to be a huge priority right across the board. I mean, I would like to make a prediction. Waleed, SAMI will become one of the biggest defense companies in the world. There is no question. And I think you'll achieve it much sooner than your target date. But I think what's make you one of the defense companies in the world is the fact that with your partners, you're going to provide a service to your customers in the kingdom. And you're going to make your income out of annuity income from providing that service, rather than just out of the supply of the equipment. And I think there are going to be many other mini examples of SAMI around the world that are going to change the face of this industry forever.
Thank you, Ivor. John, from the sort of the consulting standpoint, if you will, do you want to just add a couple, 2-3 finger interventions to that from your perspective, please? And then we'll move on to the next topic.
Absolutely. So I will absolutely agree that creating the tail to a platform system, the sustainment, the logistics is a massive cost and a massive place to look for opportunities. But I'll actually go to the front end on research and development. And I think what we're seeing in America and now globally around the world is defense organizations and governments trying to adapt as much commercial technology as possible, because the commercial side is putting that research and development dollars in, and there's no reason to recreate that on the government side if they don't have to. So very targeted research and development efforts into very defense unique technologies, hypersonics, lasers, some other areas. But when you start talking about the wider defense technologies, you can really look at a majority of them being brought over from the commercial side and not having to spend all of those research and development dollars on your own to develop it.
Thank you, John. If I could say, Alan, you know, the most modern aircraft that we're working with today in the world are both tremendously capable and immensely complex, requiring intensive logistics support. I mean, let's just take the Joint Strike Fighter from the standpoint of the one that's operating in the U.S. forces. It's a partnership between so many companies. Can you just say a few words about how you work together with Lockheed Martin, of course, and the engine manufacturers and the electronics manufacturers to produce this platform that's so complex and so capable in the marketplace today?
Yeah, you did a good job describing it, Danny. These are complex airborne sensor, surveillance, and weapon systems that have to be integrated across a variety of, to your point, aircraft flight controls, engines, radars, ground control, AWACS, and systems and weapons. And so it is a large undertaking when we talk about integrating a new system, integrating a new platform. Any changes has a flow down to multiple segments of supporting the overall system, if you will. And so, you know, one of the things that we're doing and want to continue to do is to maintain those partnerships. You know, we like to think of ourselves as all as competitors, but we're all in this as partners to provide the best capable systems and solutions to not only to the U.S., but to the U.S.'s closest partners and closest allies. And so we work across the gamut of our domestic partners, our international partners, to make sure that we provide those systems that they give that superior capability for our customers.
Thanks so much, Alan. I'd like to, in the time we have remaining, I'd like to focus on the threats a little bit. and the evolution thereof. And then I'd also like to spend a little bit of time on the future, not only the future as a result of the historic Abraham Accords, but the future of weapon systems in general, and what might be on the drawing board for 20 or 30 years from now. So in that regard, there's been a lot of lessons learned from the conflict in Yemen. I know from speaking with my Emirati friends that they have been drawing up those lessons learned for a number of years now. Those lessons learned are changing the types of investments that not only the UAE, but other countries are making in their militaries in the Gulf region. And I guess, again, the threats, like the threats on Saudi Aramco's Al Bayek facility and a series of attacks on by the Iranians on oil tankers in the Gulf, have also created a huge evolution in the threats just in the last couple of years that the UAE, Saudi, and other regional militaries face, working in partnership, of course, with the U.S. and other allies in an interoperable basis. So why don't I just throw out the question to all of you about some of the how this has changed the investment for the future, for the near future in the region, these regional conflicts and this evolution in the regional threat that's occurred literally in the last couple of years. Why don't we start with Walid with the Saudi perspective? Go ahead, please.
Thank you, Danny. Look, in my view, the threats have been the threats. What investment will continue at the various fronts, but the focus will be on what's a priority now, what's an immediate. So as an example, anti-drone drones attack have been threats in the kingdom for the last couple of years. So this is absolutely strategic. So coming up with solutions for anti-drone definitely is top priority. So it doesn't mean the others aren't important. The investment will continue. But now you're weighing your options on what should I focus on now, right now, to come up with the solutions to overcome the threats, and what I can do later for possible future threats. And I believe it's extremely important to look at the trends of threats and trends of technology, and come up with a way where I can say I'm able to invest in the right for the right options to eliminate the existing threats immediately and the key threats. And at the same time, I have a roadmap where I'm working on the trends for possible future threats, where I can position myself from now. I think this work is taking place as we speak. Absolutely, the war in Yemen have everybody learned lots of lessons from there. A quick example is support, and I know I go back to MRO. MRO is extremely important for us in the kingdom. If there's a vehicle and where we had to be dependent on an OEM to provide us with a spare part for an equipment, could be land vehicles, could be an aircraft or anything, and it will take 6 months to a year during a time of war, then that's not acceptable at all. So you need to bring that capability on the ground where you can repair, maintain, and overhaul an equipment immediately without being dependent on anyone. So this is key for us. So it is a priority. I have no doubt it's priority for many countries all over the world. But to answer your question simply, investments will continue at all fronts. It's a matter of prioritization and saying, what should I focus now immediately today versus 5 years from now?
Thank you, Walid. John and Alan, in the digital domain with regard to the evolution of threats, and I know, Alan, Raytheon has tremendous capability with regard to cyber, and that you work closely with the Emiratis and others on that. John, just say a word from the standpoint of the evolution of the digital threat, and then Alan, jump in a little bit specifically on cyber, if you don't mind.
Right, absolutely. So I'll take it from really, as Walid mentioned, where are countries putting their bets today? Where are they putting their money today? And I think one of the fundamental places they're putting it is in situational awareness, intelligence, what we call C4ISR type technologies, because, and that's for domestic and organic use. So instead of having a reliance on other partners to provide them that situational awareness, countries are developing that at a rapid scale to have that digital awareness of their environment. And I think that's one area that a lot of investment's going into. It's incredibly necessary because you need to understand the environment before you can respond to the environment. And those response options may change over time, but that need to have that fundamental understanding, and again, that's a very digital world right now, that is where a lot of investment and where technology is going.
Thank you. Alan?
Yeah, so when you think about today's world, the highest valued commodity is data. And you think about what we've done with data just in the last 6 months with the whole COVID pandemic. We are all operating from home. We are all sending data back and forth to, the home office from our remote places of work in our homes. And every system we have, regardless of how we're going to address a threat or defeat a threat, think of it as a node on a network. And that network and that data has to be safeguarded, has to be protected. And so the technology we use to protect that data, technology we use to protect our proprietary information data, that all is a commodity and has multi-purpose use that we want to continue to develop and sustain. The other piece of that is, as fast as we develop the safeguards to secure the integrity of that data, you just need an iPhone or a laptop if you are a cybersecurity criminal looking to cause an interruption. So your threat is everyone that has a PC and has ill intent. And so the continued evaluation and development of cyber tools is not only important in our defense industry, but it's important in our healthcare, our banking, finance, oil, gas. It's a significant piece of our business and all of our systems.
Thank you, Alan. I'm getting the sign that we have just a few minutes left. I want to end on a positive and sort of futuristic note, if I could. The historic Abraham Accords are going to open up an area of cooperation between Israel and the UAE, and Israel and Bahrain, and Israel and other countries that sign on to the Abraham Accords over the months ahead. And I worked with the Israelis for the first 20 years of my career very, very closely, worked very hard to protect the qualitative military edge. We worked on the programs like the tactical high energy laser and the Arrow anti-ballistic missile system, some of the most sophisticated systems in the Israeli arsenal or Israeli defense posture program we worked on together. And I just want to throw out there, do you see the possibility of that kind of cooperation with the UAE, with Israel, and also maybe involving your companies as well in the future, 20, 30 years from now, when we're looking at especially hypersonic missiles and directed energy weapons and counter UAV and all of these sorts of capabilities? I know it's a more of a crystal ball question, but it's a hopeful question. So I want to throw it open to whoever wants to make a quick response or two. Does anyone, John, do you want to take a stab real quickly?
Sure, I'll just talk about it from my point of view. We have seen immense excitement and energy around this potential new relationship. So, and this is from startup companies, venture capitalists. We are seeing a lot of inquiries on how best to leverage the ecosystem in UAE and the region, and how to facilitate those exchanges of technology and create those relationships. We're getting calls literally daily on that, both ways, and seeing how we can grow that. So I expect really a lot of growth in this area and a lot of great things to come.
Alan, American companies, and I've said this in many public remarks since the Abraham Accords were signed, many large American companies are already the connective tissue here because they have program and operations in Israel. They have program and operations in the Gulf. Just broadly, strategically, from a Raytheon perspective, do you see Raytheon being able to bring these countries together in the years ahead?
Absolutely. And we've enjoyed a very good relationship here in the UAE. We also have a strong relationship with customers in Israel as well. And for the two now to be coming together and having closer relations and being able to collaborate and cooperate in terms of multiple sectors across multiple industries is only going to benefit all of us, whether it's inside the defense industry or not. The ability for us to develop things here outside of defense in support of what we're doing with Tawazun in terms of economic development opens up more markets for us in Israel. Same thing for Israel coming here. So it's going to be a very exciting time for all of us, and we'll continue to support State Department, support UAE, support Israel in working through all of the various opportunities to support this, in my mind, historic event.
Well, gents, thank you very much. With that, we've come to the end of today's session, and I'd very much like to thank all of you for joining us today and for your contributions to I think what was a very, very interesting discussion. I'd also like to thank everyone who's turned into the program, and I want to thank the leaders at the Global Aerospace Summit for all that they're doing to create awareness and understanding of all of these opportunities. So with that, I'd like to say, please stay safe, please stay healthy, and have a great rest of your day. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Danny.
Thank you, Danny. Thank you.
I'm here this afternoon with Major General Staff Pilot Ishaq Saleh Al-Blushi, Assistant Undersecretary for Industry and Capability Building with the Ministry of Defence. General, if I can ask you to give your opening remark, please.
First, Edward, good morning, good afternoon to everybody. It is my pleasure to contribute to the Global Aerospace Summit. Thank you for inviting me. And again, I congratulate the organizer for producing such a high-grade event in the face of a great difficulty of COVID-19 pandemic. I think today we are discussing extremely important issue centered to our security and prosperity. I believe that the defense spending and technology and equipment is not only critical to building capable armed forces, but also contributing to economic growth and prosperity. Both are threatened in this time by COVID-19 pandemic crisis, which will cause a reduction in national GDP for all the nation. Also fall in the oil price in same time, and therefore a reduction in the defense spending all over the world, which we are expecting. The challenge we are going to face is to anticipate when this will be happen and when will be ending this crisis. The crisis has already threatened manufacturing and subcontractor as demand has been reduced, and several factory has limited their ability to supply. Business has slowed, and we have another challenges to anticipate when it will be speed up again. While this happening, all Ministry of Defense and Armed Forces will have to manage their contractor carefully. Hans, do you hear me?
Yes, thank you, General. And can I ask you, where do you see the biggest areas for future investments in defense technologies?
I think the technology have impact on the future, and technology is the impact in the future. And I would centralize on three areas which I believe will attract the considerable investment. Electronics and ICT. This is what we call electronic. We are calling for high-tech or artificial intelligence. Also robotic and counter-robotic and technology related to logistic, 3D printing and blockchain technology. I consider this area for a number of reasons. First, investment in this area has already begun and shown very promising result. So this will give the investor and the user where they are individual or government confidence and their risk are being reduced and the investor will be rewarded back. Secondly, many different nations and actors are investing in this area and beginning to develop associated capability. Even the potential increase in the capability what the technology can bring, other nations cannot be offered to be left behind. Third, all this technology area has dual use, anticipating and will be used for both civil as well as military market. This will improve the return of the investor and appeal to the technologies. Electronic and ICT cover wide area also, but I pick the quantum computing in particular because it is a revolutionary to ability to handle large amount of the information, which modern armed forces, they are required to collect the needed data. It is critical to future cyber capability, both an offensive and defensive, and I think the demand is going toward the cyber also. And also the ability to handle and process information given such much quicker when you are using high, high speed, computers. And this will exchange the information faster between the sensor and weapon and the machine itself. And this will give confidence for armed forces, and I think this is which is armed forces they are looking for. Unmanned and robotic also, they have a chance, and their system are already being used in many armed forces, and we can assume that this trend will increase definitely in recent coming years. The system become more sophisticated and capable, promising more different, safer use manpower, which improving the capability of this factor. On other hand, technology to counter this system also, it is important, particularly their ability to swarm will be critical to force protection. Unmanned systems have also variety civil use, which can be have return on the investment. And I think a lot of investors also, they are putting a lot of money investing in R&D and unmanned and swarm capability. Finally, 3D printing and blockchain technology also, they have a big success in the coming future because they have the potential to produce great improvement in logistic and supply chain system, which is the supply is today the key for the success. I suspect this area are of the technology where the civil market will lead, and the cost saving which will be apparent to them also. Modern military definitely system is very expensive to run through life of logistic supply chain. We have to find a way foreseeing a cost and improving efficiency of this system.
Thank you. And that leads well into my next question, which is how can the industry best support the UAE in providing cost-effective and tailored sustainment solutions for defense platforms?
I think, Edward, the answer is to this question is industry and armed forces to work more closely together. I believe there are three areas which the industry and the government, they can work to help to improve this support and cost effectiveness business. First is early engagement between the armed forces and industry, so the sustainment and the maintenance solution are designed as a part of the requirement to be. This depends on the armed forces definitely being discussing and giving the requirement as earlier as possible to the industry, so industry they can plan their capability and best life to manage the product. Second, I think we need to consider also contracting for availability. This is a new term of terminology where traditional military logistic previously there was handling everything from fourth line to first line and all the fleet. But today, with your strong partnership of the industry, they can handle some of the line, like fourth line and third line, and they will manage your obsolescence more carefully, very fastly and rapidly. Lastly, also, it is very important that shorter supply chain, we have to go and focus and anticipate in both logistic and efficiency and economic development in the country. Improving local sourcing and MRO will help to reduce the cost effectiveness and provide high quality. This may include overseas industry investment also and partnership with our local industry. We need, I think, novel industry structure and relationship for which there will be need for law and regulation to be changed and enhanced to invest with a outsourcing company. Analysis and discussion also with the both sides is required to be not to debate that can be deliver efficient and cost effectiveness business. I think this is the area which I believe which we need to focus to enhance a cost effectiveness business with our industry and focusing this three area which I share with you.
Well, thank you very much, General, for your insight today. It's been very valuable to us and we appreciate it.
Thank you, Edward. Thank you.